very much. All right, so that's kind of the golf and the charity, and now to work. So we have an exciting person here who is going to dazzle us today with some insights about the future. So let me just introduce Robert Tercek. I hope I didn't butcher your name, but I'm used to getting my name butchered all the time, so this is payback. Robert has been a pioneer of digital media for 25 years. He has served in executive leadership roles in major media companies, most recently as president of digital media at OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, and previously as senior vice president of digital media at Sony Pictures Entertainment, and earlier as creative director of MTV, Music Television. He also co-founded 5 startup ventures, including Seventh Level Inc., which went public in 1993. He's created some of the best-loved entertainment on digital devices, including digital versions of Jeopardy, Wheels of Fortune, and more than 100 other popular games. He has also supervised Oprah Winfrey's online learning programs, the largest live streaming media education programs in history, reaching audiences in many hundreds of thousands, bigger than even cable TV audiences. And he launched the very first video services on mobile phones. He's a voting member of the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences and contributed to the founding of the Interactive Media Peer Group there. Robert is a painter, a musician, a game designer, and a TV director. And he's also the author of Vaporized, Solid Strategies for Success in a Dematerialized World. Please join me in welcoming Robert Tercek.
Thank you, Ajit. Thank you. Well, thank you for that warm welcome. I'm excited to be here. Very impressive golfers here. And isn't it great? I think it's really cool that you guys raised so much money for charity. Remind me never to play golf at this table. You guys seem like you really got it. I'm excited to be here and have the opportunity to speak to Lenovo, the greatest PC manufacturer in the world. And now with the Motorola brand, you're introducing some amazing phones. I've been working in mobile now for about 15 years, and I'm super impressed by what I see. And as Ajit mentioned in his introductory remarks, for more than 20 years, I've had the opportunity to launch digital services. I've done it all over the world, in Asia, North America, Latin America, and in Europe. And I've done on just about every digital gizmo you can imagine. Initially, it was entertainment things, TV channels, and then internet games, and then mobile games and mobile video. But in the last 10 years, I've started to get approached by other kinds of companies, banks and insurance companies, and I would say, what do you need my help with? And they'd say, everything you learned in media, we now need to apply to our business because we're shifting from products to digital services. And I started to realize something that's really important, which is that the entire world is going in the direction of launching digital services. What you're working on here now is actually at the very cutting edge of what every industry is facing. And these services, these digital services, they don't just change a business or a product. They actually are starting to change our society. They're starting to change the world around us. I'm going to tell you a bit about that. But that's not all. They also change us. They're changing us. They're transforming us into what I call super consumers. So let me jump into this and explain this to you. I think it's going to be a wild ride, so sit back and enjoy. For most people, the world that we live in is a world of constant innovation. And for most people, they sit back and they're kind of alarmed and awash in changes that come at them and new updates and new things that they can download, new services they can experience. But for most people, this is a world of wonders. It's almost like magic or science fiction for them. So that's a very passive way to look at it. But what you know and what I know is that this isn't magic. It's not science fiction. It's digital software that's causing these changes. We live in an era of digital wonders. Consider, for instance, robotics. So it's a field that's suddenly in the news. You read about it every single day. You see great examples of robots. Robots themselves are nothing new. Every major auto company has had robots on the factory floor in the auto body plant for 30 years. And these robots are dangerous. These robots are deaf, dumb, and blind. They can't see us. They don't know we're there. They don't have any sensors on them. They're literally just giant arms that go back and forth. And in fact, if people get caught in the way, they can get hurt. 3 people have been killed by robots in auto factories. So those are the old-style robots. What's happening now is that robots are starting to move out into the world around us, like this Google autonomous vehicle. And it's not just Google. Every major auto company now has an autonomous vehicle program underway. These are cars that are equipped with tremendous amounts of computing power, software, and they're cloud-enabled so that they can talk to a giant server in the sky and understand better about their location and where they're at. This is a giant software project made manifest in the form of a car. And of course, it's not just cars. In Beijing right now and in San Francisco, there are robot restaurants where the food is, you order the food with robots and the food is served by robots. In Tokyo, there's a hotel that's 90% staffed by robots. Most of what's done in that hotel is done by robots. And in Berlin, if you want a drink mixed exactly to your specification, you can talk to this robot bartender and he'll mix it up for you. The most interesting change, in my view, about robotics right now is that we trust them with our lives. This is very different from what you find on a factory floor where the robots are dangerous and have to be kind of fenced off from human beings. We now have robot surgeons that can make a more precise incision and a more precise suture than any doctor, any human hand. So we literally are willing to trust our lives to robots. That's a big shift in a very short period of time. And it's a combination of advances in, for sure, the hardware, the servo mechanism, but also the software, the intelligence that drives these robots. We're starting to see robots pop up in more and more places around us. For instance, retail shopping centers. You're starting to see robots in retail shopping centers, and this isn't just something that happens in Tokyo, where they tend to launch these things first. What you're seeing on this picture is SoftBank's Pepper robot, and that will be rolling out across the United States this month, June 2016. It's powered by IBM Watson's intelligence software, and so it's a smart assistant in a shop that help consumers make better decisions. So we're learning to engage with robots and trust robots and talk to robots and rely on their advice. This is a giant shift. It's subtle, it's slow. It has taken many years to arrive at this point, but suddenly it's here. Now, for most people, this feels like science fiction. And it is sort of true that we live in an era where science fiction is the new normal. You wake up every day, you read the paper, and you hear about some advance or another that is just breathtaking. But for the people in this room, you understand that what's behind all of this are software models. Increasingly sophisticated software models operating on much bigger data sets. Now, in the past, and until fairly recently, software models lived on a computer or they lived in the internet. So you can model any business process, you can model almost any job, or even a function of an entire department in software. And until fairly recently, that was something that you would do on a computer. It was a tool that you would use on a computer. But increasingly, what we're starting to see, as in the example of robots, is that software models now operate in the world around us. And that's a gigantic shift. So what used to happen in this digital domain is now starting to invade or pervade or infuse the world around us. And we're coming to expect it. We're being conditioned to expect that. We as consumers are starting to expect it. What makes this possible is a series of three connections, three historical connections. If you think back at the 20th century, a big story in the 20th century was wiring the entire world up for telecommunications. It started out with city to city, and then whole nations, then whole continents, and gradually intercontinental connection. So the story of the 20th century was connecting everybody by telephone. And in 1968, we made the first important connection. That was connecting one computer to another. They did this at DARPA in Washington, D.C. According to DARPA lore, Bob Metcalfe was there, the inventor of Ethernet, and he was watching two scientists try to reboot a computer that kept crashing. And he said, gee, I wonder what would happen if we connected two of these things together. And that was the spark that led to Ethernet, and it was also the spark that led to the internet. By 1982, the basic protocols for the modern internet were available. That's the first connection. That's historical. You guys all know about that. And the next connection will be familiar to you as well, but we're going through it right now. The second connection is connecting computers to mobile devices, mobile phones and other types of devices. Now, I know you're all going, we know that, we're Lenovo. I know who I'm talking to. I understand, you guys are at the very forefront of this. But let's take a second to appreciate the gigantic changes that are a consequence of this connection because they're reshaping us right now. The smartphone truly changes everything. It's a massive shift. What used to occur in the digital domain now can occur any place, anytime, under any circumstance, under any situation. No matter what circumstance you find yourself in, there's an app for it. So it's changing us. It's turning consumers into people with superpowers. Specifically, there's three superpowers that we get. The first one is instant access to all the information in the world. So it kills trivia games because now people know the answer immediately when you're sitting around a bar, sitting around a table talking to your friends. Everybody has access to all the world's information. And what that means for marketers is you can't deceive people anymore. Retailers can't fool people. You have to be careful about prices because people have access to that information constantly. The second thing is they have access to each other. Your mobile phone comes loaded with ways to communicate, tremendous numbers of ways to communicate. Chat apps, messaging apps, photo sharing, video messaging. In fact, one of the last things people do these days is use the phone to actually make phone calls. That's like the last thing you would consider doing on your phone. It's kind of funny. And then the third idea, the third superpower that we have, is the ability to instantly upgrade this phone. With just the touch of an icon, you can download new capabilities to it. And that capability, that idea of software extensibility, software updates over the air, that's going to start to gradually pervade all the other smart devices. So that's at the very leading edge of changes that are changing society. I call it the activated audience. I think it's actually changing us in ways that take a passive group of people who are, in the past, were conditioned to sit back, listen, absorb marketing messages, act on instructions from marketers. That's changed. And when I talk to media companies and marketers now, I tell them they have to understand their audience differently. Because the generation that grew up with the mobile tablet or the phone, for that generation, the letters www, they don't stand for World Wide Web. They stand for whatever, wherever, and whenever. And that's the expectation that an entire generation now, almost 30 years old, have grown up with. They have that expectation that they will have at their fingertips, on their command, at any time, on any device, whatever it is they wish to consume. That's a gigantic shift in behavior, and it's not limited to media. It starts with media, but now it's extending to everything else. So one way millennials look at their phone is as this kind of remote control for the whole world. And they expect to have the ability to push a button and get instant results. And if they can't get the results that they want instantly by touching an icon on their phone, they think the place they're dealing with or the company they're dealing with is busted, and they move on to another provider. This is a harsh and unrelenting truth. This customer is merciless, this new superpowered customer, and we have to be ready to deal with them. They expect everything instantly, and as Meryl Streep said, instant gratification isn't even enough. It's not fast enough. We expect to get gratification before we even realize what we're looking for next. Smart marketers are now using data not just to look back at people's behavior, not just to do analytics on behavior, not just to do predictions about what they'll do next, but we're now moving into prescriptive analytics. We use data now to anticipate what people will do next and make intelligent, informed recommendations. And you're starting to see the best of the mobile apps do this already, those AI assistants in your phone. They track what you're doing, they see who you're talking to, what you're talking about, and they start to make intelligent recommendations. Would you like to get a car? Would you like to make a reservation for dinner? Would you like to set a place to meet right now? And so customers are gradually getting accustomed to that. And what I hope you're understanding by my comments is that each successive advance in digital, and particularly mobile services, raises the customer's expectations, and all other services must step up to that level and meet it. The customer is intolerant of services that don't step up to that level. Now, when I worked with Oprah Winfrey, I learned a lot of things. One of the most important things I learned from her was to make room for the audience. That's pretty tough in the TV business, right? In the TV business, we're pretty used to talking at audiences. We don't really engage with them too much. It's a one-way signal. You sit at home and watch. We talk at you. We produce programming. We send it your way. But the big shift now is that we have to invite people in. And what Oprah said is, you got to tell them what to do. They're waiting for instruction. You got to tell them what to do. Give them 3 simple steps. Don't make it complicated. And I realized when I worked for Oprah that as a producer or designer of an interactive service, a digital service, that I had a job to do. I could cast my audience in a role the same way you cast a talent in a role as a movie director. And if you think about the number of roles that we can cast our audience in, there's quite a few of them. You guys are developing game services, so you can turn people into participants and players. For a content service, you can turn people into commenters, curators, people who are influencers, who share information with each other. You can actually deputize your best customers and give them new roles. And over the next couple days, you're going to hear from other speakers about this, and you'll hear about some of the amazing progress in crowdfunding, where you can actually get fans who are passionate about an idea to co-finance the production of that idea, whether it's a product or a film or a game. And of course, those fans get out there and market it to their friends, and so they become co-marketers or evangelists for you as well. You can cast the audience into a role. You give them a role. You have to make room for them in your service, and you have to give them a meaningful role, but some people will step up in it, and they will do it. There's the artificial intelligence we were just talking about. It's always listening. It's always there. The other thing that's interesting about this new generation, this new audience, this new empowered customer, this super customer, is that they have zero switching cost. None. So if a service fails to satisfy them, they can delete it and replace it instantly with a touch of an icon. So switching costs are very low. In the old world of subscriber services, it was very hard. Switching costs were hard. They made it very difficult for people to unsubscribe. And now it's literally touch an icon, unsubscribe, touch an icon, download a new app that replaces it. And what happens in mobile stays in mobile. That means if people are looking for your service and they can't find it on the mobile device that they're using, it's not like they put their phone down and then get in the car and drive to a store to see maybe I can get it there. They just find another supplier, so they switch instantly. So people tend to be self-contained. They turn first to mobile for what they're looking for, and if they can't find what you're providing, then they'll find somebody else who'll provide it for them. And by the way, if you think this is just a fad or a short-lived trend, you're wrong. This is fundamental. For people under 30, mobile phones are more important than sex or television. That's saying a lot. And if you notice on this chart, this chart's a couple years old, but if you notice on this chart, internet access and car are the next two things above the mobile phone, and I'm going to tell you right now, those guys should be nervous right now. I think the car is the next thing to get replaced by the mobile phone as well. So the nature of this device and our reliance upon it is so great. It's built into our lives in so many ways now, we simply can't leave it at home, and so it's going up that kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs very quickly for us. That's one of the big changes. That's the creation of the super consumer that is merciless in their decision making, but if you can find a way to activate them, they can be an incredible advocate. The second big trend is the idea of dematerialization into software. Now that's a big phrase. The way I like to describe it is vaporize. That's the name of my book, as Ajit told you. This to me is the most interesting phenomenon that's ever occurred. By vaporize, what I mean is we're actually replacing physical stuff with software. Physical things that we used to buy and own and collect, we're simply replacing them now with software. It sounds like a crazy idea until you think about books. Amazon now sells more ebooks than hardbound and paperback books combined. We've fallen out of the habit of buying books and reading hardbound books and magazines and newspapers. Music services. People don't download MP3s anymore. That's an old habit. That's a Gen X thing. Millennials stream music. Streaming music is now the #1 source of revenue from all sources for the music industry. The map business. Think about this for a second. There was a thriving industry of publishing maps not too long ago. It's not a bad business. $15 for a very pretty colored piece of paper. Not a bad business. All gone. Now your mobile phone comes equipped with way better maps. Instantly, you can download the map and find out where you are. It tells you where you are in the language of your choice. If you get lost, it tells you exactly how to get to where you're going. An entire generation is growing up that will never experience what it is to get lost in a foreign city. Think about that for a second. This is transforming us. The game industry has been totally transformed. I witnessed this firsthand. When we first started launching mobile games in 1999 and 2000, my colleagues at the Game Developer Conference in San Francisco said, mobile games suck, they're terrible. And they were very dismissive about this for about 9 or 10 years, and now all of a sudden, mobile games are the driving force and the cutting edge, the fastest growing segment of the game business. But not only that, the economics of mobile games have totally transformed the way we design games, so it's actually changing the creative of games as well. And my friends in the TV business don't like to hear this, but TV is being vaporized as well. Half the video watched in the US is now watched on demand, and most of that is coming from streaming services delivered over networks. And increasingly, it's a large part of what's delivered to mobile devices. But when I say vaporized, I don't just mean we're vaporizing the videotape. In the old days, if you wanted to be in the TV business, you had to have a broadcast station and you had to own wireless spectrum, or you had to put a satellite up in sky or pull cable through the ground. All of that now is being vaporized as well. So the new video services are infrastructure free. Infrastructure is being vaporized as well, replaced by software. The extraordinary concept. Because all these services are designed to reach whatever device at any time to meet that customer expectation of whatever, wherever, and whenever, you can think of this as information-like atmosphere. It's all around us all the time. 2 million mobile apps are available no matter what circumstance we find ourselves in. One touch of an icon, you download it to your phone. Of course, it's not limited to media, maps, music, and so on. It's not just content that's being vaporized. We're also vaporizing hardware. Okay, I know that's going to send a cold chill through the whole room talking to a hardware company here. Bear with me for a second. Bear with me. It's actually kind of amazing. If you think about a modern smartphone, like a great Lenovo phone, today it comes packed with capabilities that replicate the functionality of about 25 different consumer products. And if you map the launch of the modern smartphone, circa 2007, 2008, the smartphone that comes with the App Store built into it. If you map the launch of that with the fortunes of the giant Japanese consumer electronics companies, you'll see that they've experienced double-digit decreases in the sales of cameras, video cameras, voice recorders, GPS units, all that stuff we just don't need to carry around with us anymore. We don't need to carry the battery pack. We don't need to carry the charger. We leave all that at home because we've already got one built into our mobile phone. And that's our expectation. And once we drop those things, we never go back. So we're literally vaporizing hardware. Whatever can be vaporized will be. Whatever can be turned into software will be. A couple months ago, I was in San Francisco, and I stayed at the W Hotel, and they gave me this card when I checked in, and they gave me two, so I took a picture of the front and back because I thought, this is actually kind of interesting. The front of the key says, my days as a key are numbered. Well, okay, it's not a key, it's a card, so already it's been replaced by a piece of plastic. The key is gone, is a thing of the past now in a hotel. When you turn the card over, on the back it says, say hello to Keyless. And here, SPG, the company that owns W, is encouraging us to download the SPG app. Why? Well, that way, I can purchase the hotel room or book the hotel room in advance on the app, and then when I show up at the hotel, I can automatically check in. Just pair my phone with a reader at the check-in counter, and then when I go to my door, a hotel room door, I don't need a key anymore. I just wave the phone across using NFC, near-field communication. Magically, it unlocks the door. That's kind of cool. Nice trick. But there's a lot more to it than that. That's just the thin end of the wedge. They're trying to get people in the habit of using the mobile app to replace the key. Once people start to do that, the next thing they'll do is start to inquire about your preferences. And so you can imagine in the future, when you go to a W hotel or some other hotel, sure, you'll wave that NFC phone and enable it to open the door, but that's not all. The room will instantly configure itself to your preferences. So when you walk in the door of your room, the music on the stereo will be your Spotify playlist. The video on the TV set will be your favorite Netflix programs. And so what they're starting to do is change a hotel experience. They're shifting the consumer experience of a hotel to something that is predictive and anticipatory. It understands what you're going to want next, and it can provide it. And so this is the key takeaway. This is the key message that I have for you. As goods become more information rich, they give up the characteristics of a physical product, and they take on the characteristics of a digital service, a service that can be delivered wirelessly, instantly to a mobile phone. So that's important takeaway for a hardware company. Everyone in your company needs to recognize the trend is towards digital services. A company that illustrates this brilliantly is Uber. Any Uber fans in the audience? Great. Great. Okay, good. Wow. Well, of course, it's a high-tech crowd. Half the people in the room use Uber. Me too. I use it wherever I travel. I love it. So think about Uber and think about the intense competition they face, not just from taxis, but from other car-sharing, ride-sharing services. And you realize that really what Uber is, they're not a taxi business. They're not a transportation company. They're a consumer experience company, a CX company. And I'm going to take about 5 minutes now and take you through some examples of how Uber is evolving very quickly in a highly competitive field. You see, as we vaporize things, we move away from cars as hardware to transportation as a service. There's so much competition that companies have to run really fast to keep up with customer expectations. And so what Uber's decided to do is they're going to keep raising customer expectations for CX, for the consumer experience. They realize that's all they've got. They don't own any cars. They don't own any drivers. All they own is a customer relationship through a mobile phone. And so that's where they focus on making it great. Come with me on a little journey into Uberland. First of all, what they're taking on is the worst consumer experience in the world. Ever take a cab in New York City? It's terrible, right? It's terrible. They may have good cab service here in Raleigh. I don't know. But I live in LA. I used to live in New York, and I can tell you taxi service in those two cities is terrible. So that's the villain in the story. That's who Uber is going after. If you think about a typical New York cab, it's scarce, particularly right when you want to go to the airport at 4 in the afternoon. That's when the cab drivers go, oh, my shift is over. I'm out of here. No cabs available. It's terrible. Of course, they're expensive, and particularly for what you get. When you get in the car, it's dirty. They're not clean. They're not really maintained. The seats are spongy. The transmission and the whole suspension is kind of sagging because the cars are in use 24 hours a day, 2 12-hour shifts. They never stop to repair the car. They wouldn't be able to monetize it that way. So the New York taxis are terrible. They're very uncomfortable. The drivers are rude. Okay, but that's no surprise. Everybody in New York is rude. What's surprising, though, is that the drivers are clueless. The last time I was in New York, I had to explain to the driver how to get to Lafayette Street, which is not a small street. And I was thinking, I don't even live here anymore. Where do you come from? Like, how is it that you're a driver in this city and you don't know your way? And if you want an example of the worst CX in the world, think about this. This is the greatest thing about a cab. In order to experience the product, you have to do this. You have to stand on a street in the pouring rain or the freezing snow and get soaked to your skin before you can experience the product. That's the beginning of the CX for a taxi. That's what Uber set out to address. That's what Uber set out to fix. And of course they did, magically. With a single touch of a button, you can summon a car, and just a few minutes later, a car shows up. You don't have to speak the same language. You don't have to pay them cash. You just get in the car, and magically it takes you where you want to go. No surprise, Uber is the most valuable startup company in the history of the planet. Currently valued at $62 billion. That makes Uber more valuable than Ford Motor Company or General Motors. These companies actually make cars. Uber's an app. Think about that for a second. It's astonishing. No surprise, everybody who can is rushing into the space. Everybody who can is rushing in to compete with them. In China, you've got Didi and a host of other companies, and they're fearsome competitors. They're making life very, very challenging for Uber. In India, you have Ola. In Europe, you've got BlaBlaCar. And of course, here in the US, Lyft. And some of these companies have actually aligned themselves into like a grand coalition anti-Uber to stop Uber. And of course, there's other companies as well. There's car sharing and ride sharing services. So there are literally a proliferation of new ways to get from point A to point B, and you don't need to rent a car, you don't need a taxi, and you don't need to drive a car yourself. So we're having a complete rethink. All this competition is causing us to rethink what transportation actually is. And that's why all the major car companies and other hardware companies are getting into this space. They can't afford not to be in this space, in the multi-trillion-dollar transportation market. General Motors invested half a billion dollars into Lyft, Uber's rival, in order to study autonomous vehicles and autonomous taxis. And Apple just invested $1 billion in Uber's blood rival, Didi, in China. And Toyota just invested in Uber. So you're starting to see the old school hardware companies, the old school car manufacturers, and even computer companies like Apple are aligning themselves in this grand battle for the fate of the automobile in the future. It's quite an exciting time. So Uber's got some competition. They've got fearsome competitors who are well-financed, and then there's all this proliferation of other services like car sharing and ride sharing services. So they have to compete. And the way they compete is they keep upping the game in consumer experience. They keep making their digital service better. They can't change the hardware. They don't control the cars. So they make the service better. My favorite example is, have you ever gotten in a cab and the guy's listening to like AM radio, some shock jock, and you're like, God, the last thing in the world I need to hear is that guy on the radio, but you can't change it because the driver's up in front and he won't change the channel for you. Uber lets you control the music in the car with Spotify. You control it. It's your car ride. So with one click, you can tap an app and you can control the music in the car. You pick your playlist, and that's what we're going to listen to during your ride. It's a cool idea, right? It shows you where Uber's focus is on making the customer experience great while they're in the car. Uber understands that most successful companies on the internet are driven by recommendations. Their sales are driven by recommendations, and they're not missing this opportunity either. So Uber knows when you take a ride to a restaurant that a couple hours later you're probably wrapping up and you might need a ride somewhere else, so now they're in the recommendation business, and they blast out to your phone or your watch a suggestion that maybe it's time to book your Uber ride for your way home. What a cool idea. Like, they're really thinking of you. Remember this idea of going from behavioral analytics to predictive analytics to prescriptive analytics? You can see that Uber's a very good example of this. They're changing CX. They're changing our expectation. No taxi service in the world would ever ping you at dinner and say, time to order a taxi. Now, a lot of people say Uber's a marketplace because they don't actually own any cars. They don't own or hire drivers. All they do is connect drivers together with buyers. So they're a marketplace. And we tend to think that that's it. But actually, Uber's much, much more. They're a marketplace and a platform and an ecosystem. And I want to take you through this. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into Uber now, but I think you're going to see the point. It illustrates so much about how digital services are rewiring hardware and rewiring our expectations about how the real world works. So bear with me on this part. We tend to think that on-demand marketplaces are something unique to the mobile phone, something new. But in fact, it goes way deeper than that. If you go back to the origins of the telecom business, back in the early days when telephone companies were wiring up cities, there was competition between competing telephone companies. And it turns out that the most valuable thing in a telephone network isn't the telephones at the end. It's not the terminals. It's not the wires. It's not even the wireless spectrum if you're a wireless operator. The most valuable thing in a telecom network is the exchange, connecting caller A with caller B. So a big company like AT&T, they were able to block, thwart, and eventually absorb small startup rivals back in the early days of telephony because they wouldn't switch their calls to their network. They wouldn't switch their calls. So that was a key access control point for AT&T. The exchange at the heart of the network is the most crucial thing that you can control. Now, today, we have all sorts of internet services. And every internet service is built on top of this telecom idea. Every successful internet business is an exchange of some sort or another. Google connects people who are searching for information with the company that has the answer for it. And whether it's Alibaba or Amazon, online merchants are connecting people who seek a product with the person who's got the offer, who's got the right offer for you. And so these are all switchboards, whether it's WeChat, Yandex, Facebook. Facebook is a way to connect people, one person with another person. They all are modeled on this idea of an efficient exchange that connects one person to another. And what about customers? How do you monetize this? Well, for that, we have to go to the next step. You need monetization. That's what actually makes the internet different from all broadcast or electronic media. All previous media monetized outside of the network, outside of the transmission. But the internet's different. The internet is a marketplace. It's built in. It's not just a marketplace. It's a ruthlessly efficient transactional marketplace. The medium is the market. The medium has transactions built into it. So every one of these services doesn't just connect people together. They also connect them in a transactional fashion with an advertiser, with a sponsor, with somebody who's selling something. So transactions are built into the medium, and that's how we go from a switchboard to a marketplace in telecom network. Uber understands that. Uber, of course, is a switchboard that connects drivers together with passengers. But they're not limited to any particular vehicle. So they started out with black cars, then they started to add small cars, and then they added pool cars that you can share with other people. Then they added big cars like SUVs and vans and so forth. But they realized, why should they be limited to cars? So in Thailand, Uber has a moto service. Because the traffic's terrible in Bangkok, you can get picked up by a scooter. It's a much faster way to get around Bangkok. And they give you a spare helmet, so you're safe, I guess, on the back seat. In places with water, like Istanbul and Miami Beach, Uber launched Uber Boat. And so on demand, you can call a boat. Just the app works exactly the same way as it does when you call a car. But in those cities, the app changes, and it offers you a boat as an option to get you from point A to point B much faster. And in very, very, very congested cities, like Shanghai and New York, Uber offers a chopper service. I'll bet you didn't know that, right? How many people is that new to? I was stunned when I was reading about that. I was like, that's such a cool idea. So because they offer a digital on-demand marketplace, they're not limited to a single piece of hardware. They can slot in any hardware that meets a demand. Once they have the customers, they can always add more services. They also realize that it's not always about people going from point A to point B. Sometimes people just want something like food. Well, you don't have to leave your house for that, so they offered Uber Eats. And this is growing very quickly. This is where a driver will bring you a hot meal. So you can order food. Once they have the cars, once they have the drivers, now they've got a market for people who don't necessarily want to go anywhere. They want something brought to them. So then Uber bolted on to their exchange, Uber Rush. And this is a way for local merchants to compete with Amazon. You know, Amazon's very focused on same-day delivery. And some of the big box stores are starting to compete. Little merchants are saying, well, how do we play in that space? Uber says, we've got a solution for you. We've got a solution for you. We guarantee delivery within 2 hours. So now a local merchant can compete with Amazon on just-in-time delivery. So once you build a transactional marketplace, you can start to add more services. So they've done brilliant service innovation underneath that. But that's not all. They then evolved into a platform. The key to the platform is to have an API. The Uber API is really their secret weapon. So here you can see what they show developers. This is how you can place that Uber button into any app. And the first place they deployed this, of course, was Google Maps. So in Google Maps, it used to be if you typed in an address in Google Maps, it would show you how to get there with a car or the bike, transportation, public transport, or by walking. Now there's another option, Uber. It's brilliant. It's the perfect place to put Uber, right? They know you want to go somewhere. You're looking at a map. You're typing in a destination. So they totally know what you want. Prediction, prescription, they're offering you the service as an option right there. And if you touch that button on the left that shows up in the Google app, it'll launch the Uber app for you, and you can request a car right there. So that started out with Google Apps, but now just about every travel app I use, this is TripAdvisor, has that Uber option built into it. So if you're roaming around town someplace in Germany or France or whatever, and you're looking for a place, you type in an address, you're looking for a location, you'll notice down at the bottom of the screen, get there with Uber. You touch that icon, boom, it launches the Uber app, and instantly you can call a car. Now the big shift that's happening is people are moving away from mobile apps. Consumers are migrating. You know, mostly we spend our time today chatting or social networking, so Uber's there as well. They understand that conversational commerce is the next phase. So they were the first to deploy when Facebook announced Facebook Messenger M, their artificial intelligence that's inside of the Facebook Messenger app. Uber was the first app that took advantage of this. So you have a situation here where on the left, people are talking about getting together. Hey, let's meet up for a drink. Let's meet up for dinner. And boom, Facebook M pops up and says, would you like to order an Uber for that? right in the middle of your conversation. I mean, it's brilliant, right? Like they see what you're talking about. The system's smart enough, the intelligence is smart enough to predict what you're going to need, and so they prescribe it for you. They recommend it for you. We're moving from behavioral analytics to predictive analytics to prescription. This is a gigantic shift in digital services. Something similar is happening with Amazon Echo. Now, last night at the hotel at Hyatt House, I heard a couple people talking about Echo at the bar. So some of you guys I know are into this thing. It's like the surprise hit of the year. It's Amazon's Bluetooth speaker. For those who don't know it, it's a Bluetooth speaker. You can talk to it. It has voice command. It doesn't actually have an interface other than that, so you talk to the thing. And it's driven by artificial intelligence, which has a name. It's gendered. It's called Alexa. And you can talk to Alexa. You can ask Alexa anything. And now you can ask Alexa to order an Uber for you. So you're having a conversation. People are like, hey, let's go someplace. Great idea. Alexa, can you order me an Uber? Uber will be coming in 5 minutes. It's such a cool idea that this thing like talks to you. So what Uber is doing is they're starting to infuse every experience with the ability to command an Uber. That's a shift then from a switchboard to a marketplace to a platform. And that's not all. Once they have that transactional marketplace established, they can now start to offer ways to grow their partners' businesses. And that's the essence of shifting into an ecosystem, a digital ecosystem. And they're also doing this. They're doing this because they have no choice. They have such tremendous competitive pressure from all of their rivals that want to stop them. They have to keep upping the game. So now they're moving into an ecosystem with Uber Offers. Uber Offers, an example is this one. They know you're in the car and you're going from point A to point B, and you probably have some time to kill because you're just sitting in the back of a car. So they make special offers to you while you're in the car. They know where you are. This was a month ago. Hey, it's Mother's Day. Why not order some flowers for Mom? What a great idea. You touch the call to action. It launches the Uber app, but this time you're going to order flowers from their partner, 1-800-Flowers, and then an Uber driver will pick them up and drive them to your mom in whatever city she happens to be in. Isn't that sweet? What a great idea. And you know what? I'll bet this was pretty successful because the kind of people that use Uber are always on the go, and the last thing they think of is like, oh, it's Mother's Day. I should have sent some flowers. It's a great idea. They get you right when you have that idle moment, the minute you get in the car. They know where you are. Now they're starting to build out this concept a little bit more. Free rides with Smirnoff. Sure, have another drink. Don't worry about being a responsible driver. Smirnoff's going to give you a free Uber ride. What a brilliant way to get a customer, right? In India, this is a great partnership with Paytm. It's a transaction company. If you sign up for a Paytm account, they'll give you a free Uber account. So both companies acquire a customer. It serves both companies. And of course, in the future, then you'll use that account for your future Uber rides. So they're turning on a customer. The Hilton Hotels is now integrated Uber. So they know where you're going because you've already told them, you've already booked the hotel through the app. And so when you arrive, would you like to get an Uber? Would you like to get an Uber back to the airport? And the same thing is true with many airlines, including KLM and United, which is not shown here. This is KLM. But they've integrated with Uber as well. So they know when your plan lands, and then as you're going to get your luggage at the luggage carousel, you'll see a notification, would you like to order an Uber? So this is about anticipating what people are going to need next and offering it to them proactively before they realize it. That's the way you have to think if you want to be successful, if you want to evolve from hardware to software. And of course, they have a robust developer network, and they run developer boot camps all over the world in every continent. So this company takes this extremely seriously, and I know you do the same with your developers and partners. The next phase is a new thing, a new initiative this year called Uber Trip Experiences. And here what they're going to do is auction off people's attention to the highest bidder. So they know you're in the car, they know it's a 15-minute ride, and so they'll say to a news organization, hey, who would like to have this person's attention for the next 15 minutes? Isn't that a great idea? And then they'll sort of figure out a way to blast into the phone a little 15-minute news experience. Or they can plug into your Internet of Things, your smart house. And if you're on your way home, they can say, would you like to turn the AC on? It's a little bit hot today, particularly where I live. I would love to have the ability to do that. Or if you're on the way to a restaurant, let's say you get the spur-of-the-moment inspiration, let's go out to dinner tonight, and you jump in a car. But maybe it's a restaurant you've never actually eaten at. So wouldn't it be nice to actually see the menu before you arrive? And this is already happening. So here's an example from Uber. You would be going to the Zuni Cafe in San Francisco, and one touch of the icon launches the Zuni Cafe menu. So these are Uber trip experiences. So now they're realizing that they have you for 15 minutes or 5 minutes or 10 minutes in a car. Why not make that the best possible customer experience? No other company in transportation thinks this way. They are consistently raising the game on their competitors. They have whole teams dedicated to customer experience. They take it seriously. They understand that is all that stands between them and a switch to another service because the customer is ruthless. Every customer that uses Uber also uses Lyft or Didi or Ola or one of the other competitors. So they're just one switch away, one icon switch away. The takeaway for Lenovo and your partners is simple. What part of your business is an open platform for collaboration? How can you turn your business into a platform and ultimately an ecosystem that thrives? I know smart minds in the room are thinking about that, but that's a very important takeaway point. Uber's doing a great job of focusing on that. Strangely, though, everybody hates Uber. Have you noticed? It's like the company everyone loves to hate. Every time you read about it in the paper, somebody or other is protesting against them. They're getting sued. They're getting sued in so many cities. I lost track. They're being sued all over the world, regulatory pressure on them. So everybody seems to hate Uber. It's no surprise that taxi drivers don't like Uber. They think it's unfair competition. And in every city in the world, there have been violent protests, big protests, and sometimes very violent protests. This is a picture from Paris. And of course, in France, violent protest is like a national sport. So there's no surprise there. This happens all the time. But anyway, Uber is putting pressure on the cab business, so of course they push back. But a lot of other people take issue with Uber as well. It's not just taxi drivers. And I often wonder, why is that the case? And I thought, you know why? They're doing something different, and they're doing it so aggressively and so fast that not everybody's ready for it. And there's a lot of resistance. And Uber, well, they're run by some pretty provocative fellows, so their vision is we're going to just blast through. We're going to recondition people. What I think Uber's doing is they're imposing digital rules on the real world. Remember earlier I talked about taking software rules and applying them in the real world? I think Uber's a brilliant example of this. What do I mean? Well, here's a great example, surge pricing. Those who use Uber know exactly what I'm talking about. You're in a situation where you need a car in a hurry, you need a ride in a hurry. Oh, well, demand is off the charts and the price goes up. Now, I was in London last year for an event, and I had to get all the way across London. I was at Excel, which is like a conference center way the heck out of town, and it was pouring rain, and there was a taxi strike. There were no taxis. And the line to get on the light rail to the tube, more than 1,000 people in line. In other words, we couldn't all fit on the train. I was like, oh, how am I going to get there? So I had this experience. I said, time for Uber. And it was a 4x charge. It was 100 pounds for me to get from point A to point B. But I didn't really have any choice. I had to get to this meeting. I was going to be hours late if I tried to take public transport. And so I paid for it. Now, that seems like it really stinks. And a lot of people don't like it, and they get offended. You hear a lot of people arguing about this. But what Uber's doing is something that happens all the time in digital. Happens all the time in e-commerce. If you go to Amazon.com with the same browser and over and over and over, they know you're a regular customer, they know what you've already bought, and they're dynamically changing prices every time you hit that page. It doesn't happen in the real world when you go to Best Buy or Walmart. By law, they can't dynamically change the price based on who the customer is. But I know that Amazon, when they see I'm driving an Apple computer versus a PC, the prices go up 10%. I'm not kidding. Test it yourself, and you'll see exactly what I mean. Same product, different pricing. That's dynamic pricing on the web. It happens every single day. Uber's taking that concept and they're applying it in the real world. And actually, it's not such a bad thing, even though people don't like it very much, because what Uber's trying to do is dynamically allocate supply to meet demand. So in the situation I was in, it was raining, it was London, there were no cabs, and the demand was off the charts. Boom. All the taxis, all the cars, all the Uber vehicles were taken. How does Uber lure people to get up off their couch and jump in their car and go drive around and pick up passengers? By raising the price up. So it's a law of supply and demand. They're actually expanding supply when the demand is off the charts. So that's one way that they're pushing new software rules from the internet into the real world. But there's many other examples. Uber's run into trouble with regulators. Uber feels like the Taxi and Limousine Commission is an artifact of a bygone era. It isn't needed anymore because there's a much harsher regulator. It's that empowered customer. And Uber allows the customer to rate every driver. What a lot of people don't know is the drivers also get to rate you. So if you throw up in the back seat of an Uber on a Saturday night, don't expect to get picked up next Saturday by Uber drivers because they're going to see that. That shows up. A lot of people don't know that. So what Uber's doing is it's not just a transactional marketplace they're creating for drivers and passengers. They're also creating a reputation marketplace that matches two people together. It matches people by reputation, allows each other. Basically, we become our own regulators in that system. But that's a giant shift. Governments don't like this very much. Local governments have a lot invested in their Taxi and Limousine Commission. So Uber runs into trouble there. They're pushing software into the world to replace the Taxi Limousine Commission. Uber's also replaced management. They haven't vaporized the car, but they have vaporized the dispatcher. And when you talk to an Uber driver, get in a conversation next time you're in an Uber, talk to the driver and ask them how they like driving. And most of them will say, I like it. I'll say, how come? Well, I'm an independent businessman, or I'm an independent businesswoman. You say, no kidding, really? Yeah, I decide when I start, I decide when I'm done. Nobody tells me what to do. I said, well, who tells you where to pick up a passenger? Oh, the app tells me that, because they have a special app for drivers. Oh, okay, and then when you finish driving that person, how does somebody know, like, to assign you the next assignment? Oh, the app tells me that as well. The app knows when I drop someone off, and the app tells me where to go next to pick somebody up. I said, so you work for an app. Your boss is an app. And I've got news for you. If your boss is an app, you're probably a biological robot. And that's, in fact, the next thing that's coming. Uber is going to use software to replace human labor. And this is a crazy notion. Sounds nuts until you think about when these robot vehicles were introduced by Google just 5 years ago. They were audacious, right? It was a radical idea, preposterous. Most people thought, no way, come on, there's no way it's going to happen. No software smart enough, no robotic systems good enough or reliable enough. Plus, we have all these laws about driving. Who's going to be responsible? How will the insurance work? It just seemed like an impossible problem. Well, here we are, 2016, just 5 years later, and now, you know what? It seems pretty plausible. I guarantee you, 5 years in the future, by 2020, robot vehicles are going to seem perfectly normal, perfectly ordinary. And Uber has a lot to do with this transformation as well. So the idea is that in the future, you won't own a car. If you live in a city, you'll subscribe to a service. One tap, one voice command, a car will magically appear, pick you up. It'll be a robotically driven vehicle. It doesn't even have a steering wheel in it. This picture shows one. These are concepts from GM from a couple years ago. It'll pick you up, it'll drop you off, and you'll go off on your way. You don't have to worry about parking the thing. You don't have to worry about insurance. It'll go pick up another passenger, and you're on your own. It's a cool idea. It's car as a service, or transportation as a service. Well, guess what, folks? It's here now, this year, 2016. They're rolling them out in Japan. They're rolling them out in Singapore. They're rolling them out in the UK, and they're also rolling them out in the United States. So this concept of robot taxis is actually happening right now. And the notion is that we can replace car ownership with software. It's a radical idea. Something similar, to get off the Uber topic for a minute here, is happening. Something similar is happening with hotels. Airbnb is now valued at a higher market cap, or market valuation, than all but 3 of the largest hotel chains in the world. And yet they don't own any hotels, they don't employ any hotel staff, they don't brand any hotels or operate any hotels. What Airbnb does is they represent 1 million properties in 30,000 cities around the world. And again, this is a company that's only 6 years old. It's astonishing how fast these digital, on-demand, vaporized marketplaces can grow and expand overnight. And of course, they're putting tremendous pressure on traditional hotel chains to rethink their business as well, because they're increasing the consumer experience. They don't sell hotel rooms. If you read about Airbnb, you talk to people that work there, they'll tell you they're in the customer experience business. They're selling experiences. You know, hotel rooms are selling standardized boxes, so you kind of know what to expect. And so you don't have high expectations for a hotel, but you do expect certain things like, you know, soap, a bed, a room, a phone. You know, it's pretty basic stuff that we have very low expectation for most hotel chains. Airbnb can't compete with that because they don't control their inventory. It's a bunch of private homes, people with a private room or maybe a whole separate apartment that are renting them out. So they can't quality control that. So instead what they do is they sell it as a service. And they put tremendous effort into that. You know, they put tremendous effort into improving the customer experience, surprising you and making it an awesome experience for you. They'll even send a camera crew out to take photographs of a property if you list it on Airbnb. And so they're trying to make sure that that's packaged up and presented in the best possible way. Again, competitive forces require that they do that. They have to constantly innovate. We're starting to see this happen to more and more businesses in the real world. I do a lot of work with retailers, and retailers are now having to rethink their consumer experience because people have such a great experience on the phone. The retailers are trying to just get them to put the phone back in their pocket and look around at the store. And sometimes that's not even enough. A few years ago, Tesco, a big retailer in the UK, bought Home Plus, which is the second largest retailer in Korea. Now, they thought they would expand and try to make it the biggest retailer in Korea, the biggest home goods store in Korea. However, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it because they couldn't get the real estate. If you've been to Seoul or Incheon lately, you know what I mean. Those cities are booming. There just isn't like vacant space anywhere in those cities. And so Tesco was thwarted. They were like, how can we increase the number of stores? We have a plan to increase the number of stores. That's why we bought this company. We're going to grow it. How else can we grow it? And someone had a brilliant idea. They said, you know what, let's put the store where the customers are. Instead of making the customers come to our store, let's take the store and put it where customers are. What you're looking at here is a subway station in Seoul, Korea. That's not a store. That's a subway station. Now, Koreans are smart. They put walls up over the track. In the United States, like in New York, we have open tracks so you can push somebody in or you can fall in. This is crazy, right? Crazy, dangerous thing from the 1930s. But in Korea, they have these walls. And so then the doors open up and you get on the train. And so the designers that worked at Tesco, they said, you know what? Let's take life-size photographs of every product and every shelf and put those up on those glass walls. And while people are standing around waiting for their train to come, you can see what that fellow on the right side is doing. He's taking a picture with his phone of a product, and he can order it. And then we know where he's going. When he arrives at that destination, there'll be somebody waiting for him. No store. Vaporized store. This concept was so successful, and it helped Home Plus grow so quickly that Tesco imported it to the UK. And you can see this. This is not a store that we're looking at. This is in a train station in London. And they wrapped the columns in the train station, same way they did it in Korea. They wrapped the columns with life-size products, pictures, and then you can see the woman takes a picture of the barcode or scans in a code on her phone and orders the products. Again, we know your destination. We can predict where you're going to be, and we can make sure that someone's there to meet you at the other end with those products. They're now starting to try this out in the United States. A company called Peapod. What you're looking at here is not a store. This is a corridor inside of a train station in Chicago. Peapod's trying this right now in Philadelphia and Chicago. So this is the vaporized store. This is software as a substitute for physical stores, physical real estate. And of course, if you think about the most successful store in this category, it doesn't have any physical premises whatsoever. I'm talking about, of course, the Apple iTunes Store and the App Store. Every product there has been vaporized. It never existed in a non-digital form. But that's not all. All the packaging, all the marketing, the warehouse, the distribution, all of that is vaporized. All of that has been replaced by software. And lo and behold, iTunes, if you separated out the iTunes Store, Apple software sales, if you separated that out as a separate company, you would see that Apple is a larger retailer than some of the largest retail chains in the United States. If they were on the Fortune 500, they would be ranked as number 150, just iTunes alone. That doesn't even include Apple's real physical stores, which are also extraordinarily successful. Now, if we think about the cloud, you can see that this phenomenon of replacing physical stuff with software isn't just happening on the consumer-facing side with apps replacing stores and cars and so forth. It's also happening in the back office. That's what the cloud represents, vaporized infrastructure. All of these services, great services, Dropbox, Scribd, Pinterest, Spotify, they serve hundreds of millions of people a week, every day. They're very different businesses, but they all have one thing in common. They all ride on top of Amazon's cloud. What Amazon's doing is making it possible for companies to innovate faster because they don't have to invest in physical infrastructure. A friend of mine worked in biotech, and he said the next biotech billionaire will start her company at a coffee shop with a smartphone, a laptop computer, and a credit card. She'll put everything on the Amazon cloud, and she'll just build her business that way. She'll never have to have physical presence for a company. And increasingly, I'm seeing examples of that in my own work. Utterly vaporized businesses launched from scratch. This is an innovation accelerator. The cloud accelerates innovation because it removes all those hurdles from startup companies. It allows them to get launched much faster. So that's software as a replacement or substitute for physical infrastructure. I think you're starting to see my point, which is that everything that can be vaporized will be. Everything that can be replaced by software will be. And if you believe that there's a part of your business that might be subject to this trend, don't hesitate. You got to figure out how to do it first, because I guarantee you somebody else outside of your company is already thinking about that. We're seeing it happen with cars. We're seeing it happen now with insurance companies. We're starting to see it with even government and education. We're vaporizing whatever we can. So this idea of using software to replace some physical object is literally reshaping society. And it is an ongoing trend. We're at the very beginning of it. This will be one of the dominant notes of our century. It will define our century. But I talked to you earlier about 3 kinds of connections. That was just the second connection, connecting computers to mobile devices. All those changes are a consequence of that one connection. But I promised you 3, and the next one's even more exciting. That's connecting computers to everything. This is a system I have at home. It's a Honeywell system for a smart home, and I can control my AC from here. So if it's super hot when I land at the airport, I can turn the AC on, and my house will be cooled down by the time I get there. Whatever can be connected will be. So what we just did with the mobile phone, by connecting the mobile phone to computers, we're going to start to do that with every single device that can possibly be connected. It won't just be connected to the internet, it'll be connected to artificial intelligence, to big data systems, and so forth. Many people describe this as the biggest opportunity in the world. It's sometimes characterized as a $1 trillion, $3 trillion, $5 trillion, $10 trillion opportunity. You know what I'm talking about. It's the Internet of Things. We hear about it all the time. It's one of the most searched buzzwords now. It's meant to grow very fast. This is the most conservative chart I could find to project the growth of the Internet of Things, smart devices of all sorts. This chart projects that there'll be $1 trillion of business. And in the similar chart, they estimate that there'll be about 20 billion devices connected to the network. Some other people, though, say, actually, we already have 20 billion devices connected to the network. And their projections are much higher. They say it'll be 50 billion. Sometimes they say 100 billion devices. It's an astonishing concept. Let me take you through it. The idea isn't so much about embedding a computer. We've had embedded computers and things for many, many years. It's that they're networked computers, networked intelligence in devices. Every one of those smart devices is a node on a network that's gathering information, whether it's in your glasses or a wristband, a sports band that you wear, or a smartwatch. And of course, all these devices are common today, and they're going to seem increasingly quaint because the next generation will be things like smart tattoos or projectable screens that appear when we need them and disappear when we don't need them. These are all going to be nodes. You'll be able to swallow computers. This is something they've already developed. Ingestible computers and implantable computers. So those access key cards that you have at your office, you won't need anymore. You can just simply have it in your hand, built into your hand. Those smart systems that we wear will talk to smart systems around us, like this Nest thermostat or this Withings smart bathroom scale, or these smart door locks that recognize you when you come home and automatically unlock. And you can set them to recognize a guest or maybe someone who's coming to clean your house when you're not there. Smart systems that recognize you, anticipate your arrival, and change for you. Increasingly, these systems will be sold, these products will be sold as systems, smart systems, something you wear that talks to something else. In this example, you wear one part of the system, and it talks to a drone that follows you. So if you're doing action sports, skiing, jumping out of a plane, you can have a drone that follows you and takes great action camera video of you as you do your stunts. It's not just about devices, it's also about environments. The Internet of Things means that very soon we're going to be expecting environments to respond to us. I come from Cleveland, Ohio, and every time I visit there, I visit the great art museum that they have in that city. Now, they closed it a few years ago for 5 years, rebuilt it, and the new version is amazing. If you go to Cleveland for business, stop in and check it out. They have a gigantic touchscreen display on the first floor. It has every